Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Jack. Today I want to talk about the assassination of the healthcare CEO. It happened earlier this month. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because I just cannot believe the takes people have on this. So this is one of those situations where I feel like, do you remember like the situation with Trump, where if Trump says he loves puppies, then the left comes out and says, no, they hate puppies, or just something like that, where it's ridiculous, right? And I feel like this happened in reverse on this situation. So the far left came out, Taylor Lorenz and stuff like that, and said, wow, we're not sad that this guy's dead, right? So the right immediately comes out and says, wow, these are a bunch of psychopaths. They want people murdered around the country. It's almost like they just took the opposite position and didn't even think about the situation at all, right? So we're going to break it down, right, real fast. So this guy is the CEO of a large healthcare company, and it's the worst healthcare company in the country, right? It's got 32% denial rate. Industry average is 16%. Good companies have like 7%, right? And he's going to a function where they're celebrating the massive profits that this company has when he gets gunned down the street. Now, I assume that the guy who gunned him down was a guy who lost his father, mother, wife, one of his children or whatever from the healthcare system. And it definitely didn't turn out to be that. I would have bet on it. Definitely didn't turn out to be that. And so I'm not going to go into who the guy was. That's not as important. You know, he was a rich guy, you know, or from a rich family, and he was idealistically motivated, highly intelligent. We're not going to go into that too much because that's not as important. Well, okay, so like, then you get people on the left who are celebrating him, and then you get people on the right, like even people who think good, like Mark Dice. He thinks real good, in my opinion, on a lot of different subjects, and he just calls this guy a psycho, you know, or just everybody on the right is really against this. And in general, you know, you don't want people assassinated. Obviously, you don't want people to die in general, you know. But the problem I realize is that the right has this crazy stance on healthcare, where they're kind of like, you know, you should pull yourself up by the bootstraps, figure it out. Like me in my life, I've had healthcare for like a little over 1 year out of my entire life, including my childhood, you know. And they're just like, no, just pull yourself up, you know. So you got family, you got kid on the way, you know, you just can't afford it. Now my wife and kids have healthcare, you know, that's different, but I just can't afford it for myself generally. So the right does the whole pull yourself up by the bootstraps, get your healthcare. That's not this situation. This situation is people who are doing the right thing, who are paying for healthcare. Then they're getting denied their claims because the CEO has created an artificial intelligence that checks out the cases and sees if they should be denied or not. But it has a 90% failure rate on what it chooses to deny and accept, you know? And so you've got altogether medical bills, bankruptcy rate is 2/3 of the bankruptcies in this entire country, right? So these are people who have healthcare and they're being denied coverage, even though they're paying for the healthcare, which is absolutely absurd. And it's absolutely absurd that this is a for-profit company. This is this is one place where capitalism does not belong. You're not taking insurance money to cover people's health care and then trying to profit off it. The idea of that's completely absurd, right? And so my point here is that on the right, they're pretending like this is the situation of people who aren't covered with healthcare, when the situation is people who are covered, right? And so in my opinion, if you look at, like, you could look at big pharma, you would be looking at different people, right? But we're not looking at big pharma. We're looking at health insurance. Of health insurance, this guy's the CEO of the worst company. So of the people who are currently working in healthcare, this is the most evil man in the country. Of the people who are working in the industry right now, there could be some retired ones that did some terrible stuff. But when this guy picked the target, what I'm saying is, if that's your MO, you know, then you picked the perfect person at the pinnacle of evil here, you know? And like, I was watching a PBD podcast, which has become very terrible, and Cenk Uygur was on, and Cenk Uygur was like, well, you know, violence has no place because the problem is you lose at the table of ideas once you resort to violence. And when it comes to healthcare in the United States, we've lost at the table of ideas my entire life. We've just lost, right? I can't get healthcare. I can't afford healthcare. You know what I mean? I don't know what your situation is like. It's a terrible system. And I'm not saying I know what the right system is, and I'm not trying to push some healthcare agenda. I'm just saying that it's a terrible system, and tens of thousands of Americans have died from it. Many more than that have gone bankrupt over this, whether they had health insurance or not, though, and so I'm not justifying, the guy doing the assassination, but I am saying I see where he's coming from in an idealistic viewpoint, and the effectiveness of what he see people on the right say that, oh, that's not effective, but it is effective what he did, and it does cause other companies to hire security, start changing their policies. And so what do you expect if you can't get at the table of ideas, if you cannot get any progress in healthcare in decades and decades and decades, and then the progress you get is just foolish. You get Obama with the mandates. So then I couldn't afford healthcare at the time. So now I'm paying the monthly mandate, even though I can't. And then eventually I can't even pay that. So I just have to take a fine for every month at the end of the year on my next tax return. Absurd, And then thankfully Trump pulled that out with an executive order at the beginning. That was one of the best things he did personally in my life. Anyways, I'm just saying that I think that people, I'm more aligned with the far left on this, which is funny because I'm not going to go online and celebrate somebody's death or something, but I totally see where they're not unhappy that this happened. Whereas the faux outrage on the right, because they're conflating this with their stupid position on healthcare, which is pull yourself up by the bootstraps. When you're already paying taxes and stuff, I don't understand why basic healthcare is not covered. I can't understand that. And I know government inefficiency and this and that. But imagine you can't go to the doctor because you can't afford either the healthcare or the doctor bill. You just can't go to the. So it's like, oh, you live in the first world country. What's your, like how long do people live? What's your life expectancy? It sucks. It sucks. Can't go to the doctor. Can't afford healthcare. Can't afford doctor bills. You know what I'm saying? And I'm well to do compared to a lot of percentage of people in this country. I'm definitely middle class. And I think the position on the right's absolutely absurd on healthcare, but it's even more absurd on this issue, right? Because these are people who have healthcare, but they're still getting screwed over. And then that's the United States of America. That's what it's like in this system. And it's trash. People's opinion on the right's trash about this. On the left, they're going too far, some of them, like Taylor Lorenz talking about joy. If you have joy over somebody's dying, I don't know. I don't like that part, but I do see where it's effective. Now, this reminds me of an episode, which I'm going to plug here, that we did in the past. If you haven't seen it, it's called The Femme Assassinations. And it talks about this period in the Weimar Republic, interim period between World War I and World War II, where there were just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people assassinated over this short period of time, And you don't want to do that. You don't want to live in that situation. But it's effective nonetheless. It moves the needle, And one more thing I want to say on this is that I was listening to Patrick Bet-David, like I said, and he told this story, and he said he was watching the movie 5 years ago. He was watching The Joker, the first one, right? And he got 42 minutes into it, he says, and he got up and walked out of the theater because he realized this is divisive. This is one of my number one favorite movies in the world, And I feel like the reason why he hates it is because he sees himself as Bruce Wayne. He sees himself as the guy who ends up getting killed in the alley in the movie, right? And he's like, man, we can't be having these assassinations, because there's all these rich people and, they got all this wealth, and then what do they do with it? Well, it's just become pedophiles. So they become pedophiles. And then little people like us are like, man, want to eat the rich, those rich, not all the rich, the ones who haven't fulfilled their duty to society with their wealth and instead have used it for terrible, immoral things, And then he's looking like, well, I hope they don't eat the rich, And then somebody from my perspective is like, man, Eat the Rich. Love that movie. Anyways, but the difference is we're coming from different perspectives. And I just can't stand terrible rich pedophiles. Anyways, that's what I got for you. I'm interested to know, because this is controversial. I'm interested to know what your opinion is. Do you disagree? Do you agree with the standard right opinion on this? That we should just we should fight and protect, the worst healthcare CEO in the country, And that, anyways, if that's your position, it's a rough position. I'd love to see it in the comments explained. Anyways, that's what I got for you. Hope to see you tomorrow.